Ladies and gentlemen, we are live on day 2 of the Future Worker webinar. I think yesterday, oh my gosh, hands down, like that last speaker blew my mind away. So please, once again, chat bar is there. We loved having the interaction, loved having the comments. Please say hello, where you're from. And if you had a favorite moment or a favorite speaker from yesterday, please mention it. I know Brett, who was that last speaker, absolutely blew my mind. So please do that. Yesterday's focus was all about, for a future worker, what skills and what thinking do they need? So we had someone from LinkedIn speak. We had Brett, who comes from an AI background, speak. We also mentioned a couple of solutions and products that can help you as a school as you kind of prepare these incredible future workers and learners. And today we're taking a little bit of a side view. What we've realized is healthy workers, kind of sending out people into the working world that are emotionally healthy, is critical for the future of this country and way further than that. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So we've got it sounds like a weird joke, but we've got a homicide detective, former homicide detective. We've got a deputy head, we've got a headmaster, we've got a social media guru, and we've got a tech EdTech app in the mix. So I think we are in for quite an exciting day as we dive into how, as schools, can we prepare our learners to be healthy. Keywords like well-being, emotional health, and what we're looking for is that kind of well-rounded person. So I think on that note, let me introduce my co-host. We were joking that I am Maverick and he's Iceman, for those that have watched the movie. But Jared is from Yenza, and what they do is they look at the future of learners and help them get to where they should be with a career path. So it's brilliant having Jared and the Yenza team with us. But Jared, maybe a question. What stood out to you for yesterday?
Thanks so much, Pete. I'm very happy to be your Iceman, even though it's quite hot today. So yesterday was fantastic. Some great speakers. I encourage everyone who didn't get a chance to view it live to view the recording. A couple takeaways from me, from Luke from LinkedIn. He mentioned those 4 critical skills. He calls the 4 C's: creativity, communication, collaboration, and curiosity, and instilling those skills into young people so that they can perform in any kind of context or environment, I think was really useful. From Brett, what a brilliant talk. I think what he spoke about around getting young learners, not just from diverse backgrounds, but diverse ways of thinking, and to collaborate in that way, because that's what he sees happening very much in the workspace, I thought was very insightful. And then just to reiterate one of the analogies we spoke about in the Yenza talk around instilling in a compass for young learners to navigate in a very fast changing, uncertain environment, and helping them course correct themselves by raising their levels of self-knowledge, self-awareness, career awareness, and various other things. So it was a jam-packed day. I'm only scratching the surface of all the really good nuggets that were shared.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jared. We're going to keep you on standby in the background to give some thoughts and ideas. And thank you for your support. So one of the things from yesterday is people eventually found the react button. So somewhere on your screen is a little smiley face. If you hit it, you will see a reaction. So please feel free to go wild with that. It just, as a presenter, because we can't see your face, it's just great getting emotion. So we love the comments, love what you do. So thank you. I see Shelley here wrote from yesterday, fail forward. And I think that was, to me, was the standout thing, is it's good to fail. And we need to teach our learners that failing is fine. So on that note, we're going to dive now into this topic of well-being and producing well-rounded learners that can go out and be ready for a global workplace. So our very first speaker is straight in from the UK. It seems we've had quite a few UK speakers. And I think what excites me about this speaker is he understands what you're going through, because not only does he look after one school, but he actually looks after 3 schools on the well-being side of the safeguarding and the pastoral side. And he has a passion for safeguarding. So Luke, welcome on stage. Luke is straight in from, and I'm going to try get it, St. Benedict's.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So everyone, I'm going to hand over to Luke. Luke is, as you can see, if he's looking after 3 schools in the pastoral and safeguarding side, he's passionate about this. And Luke, we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Over to you.
Great, thanks very much, and hello everybody. This is, as Pete says, very much somebody who's at the coalface of looking after schools. And I've done a few talks in the last year or so, and the key starting point for me has been that we've all been part of an unintended global experiment, really, of what happens if you take away school from lots of children. And unsurprisingly, it's not great. It's shown, the COVID pandemic has shown how vitally important school is for the well-being of students, as well as for people and parents as well, how vitally important it is to have them being educated away from home and not by their parents, but that's another thing. But that crucial focus on pastoral care, the well-being of students, is what I want to talk about today. And I think the key thing there is to say that it's become ever clearer for school leaders, something that, it's always been known to be the case. A happy student is one who's going to do well. But I think what's happened in the last few years has made that even clearer to us all. And another thing that's really struck me when I do staff training is that, of course, a lot of people who go into teaching might well be people who really thrived at school, really found it not that difficult, really enjoyed academic work. And one of the key things I always say to teachers is, well, there might be quite a lot of people in your school who aren't like that, people who are going to find school a much bigger struggle. And that's, I always think, a really good starting point for understanding how people might not automatically find school an easy place, a place where they're able to thrive and be happy. The second point, and this is something where if you're a school leader, it's really important when you're talking to governors, when you're talking to external agencies, if they say to you, why as a school are you focusing on mental health? Why are you focusing on the well-being of our students? Isn't that what parents do? Isn't that what other people should be doing? The key thing for me as well, and the thing that we found at my school, St. Benedict's, is not that much as a surprise, is that the happier your students are, the better they feel looked after, the better they do academically. So there's a really key and a quick payoff that actually, if you look after students pastorally, results get better as well. And that's something we've been finding over the last few years. So I haven't got massive amounts of time, so I'm just going to talk through a few things about how I try as a school leader to make my school one where we're creating healthy, well-rounded pupils. And that's certainly not to say that we've got all the answers, and certainly not to say that lots of other schools aren't doing fantastic things. These are just some thoughts. And I find as a school leader as well, it's always nice to have some thoughts from outside your school. There might be thoughts that you think, oh, we already do that. There might be thoughts that you think, actually, maybe they're not for me. But hopefully there's at least one thing you can take away. And the first thing I want to start with, and I think this is vital as a school leader, is if you're saying to your staff that well-being is at the center of what you're doing, it can't just be words. You've got to give people the time and the support to make well-being center of things. You've actually got to give time in the curriculum to do it. You've got to give time and space for teachers to be trained in order for them to be able to support the students properly. And that's something I think a lot of schools I found was wanting to tick the box. Right, let's just put on our website, we are a very well-rounded school. I always note with amusement some of the schools, which I won't name, round our part of West London, which are very, very highly academic. And they always say, no, we are not a hothouse. We are very interested in the rounded person. And I always look at that with a slight note of skepticism. But anyway, with us, the key thing is that we give our staff an awful lot of training to support them, so that when they're not just having students coming to them with issues and then say, oh, goodness, I'm a bit worried about that. We actually help them to be able to support their students really effectively. So, for example, a lot of our staff has what's called mental health first aid training. And that's why they're actually given us several days to go away and do training. And it's not to say they're suddenly becoming professionals, but they're given help on how to assess students, maybe if they've got depression, if they have anxiety, to at the very least be able to direct them saying, well, okay, if you're feeling anxious, this is somebody you might go and talk to. This is something you might try and do. Here are some resources you could go and look at. And so all of our teachers aren't suddenly experts in mental health, but are all people who can actually help direct students, reassure them, give them an appointment with our school counsellor, and actually do something to support that. And that's something you do across the board. So, for instance, in terms of what we call in England RSE, relationships and sex education. So relationships education, again, that's something I think in sort of more 20, 30 years ago wouldn't have been a major feature in schools. But all of our young people, to become effective, high-performing young adults, need to be able to understand about how to have positive and safe and sensible relationships, either sexual or non-sexual, really. But to have those kind of that kind of teaching in schools, you have to train your teachers. You have to make them comfortable in having those kind of discussions. So again, we do very intensive RSE training with a lot of our teachers. So they're not just saying they're talking the talk, they're actually being able to explain to students exactly how these things work, be able to have those one-to-one discussions and support our students being confident people who going out into the world are happy and confident with these kind of issues. Another area that we look at is neurodiversity. So something in the UK, but I'd imagine in all countries around the world, again, post-pandemic, the diversity of how people think. The people with autism diagnoses or ADHD diagnoses, other different diagnoses. Again, explain to teachers, how do we deal with that? How do we support that? So the first key thing for me is if you're a school that's going to say that you're looking to create healthy, well-rounded pupils, is you've got to spend the time and the energy in training your teachers and giving them time in their own busy working days to actually support the students. So that's the first key thing. The second key thing to me is about how teachers are in terms of watchfulness around their students. Now, to explain that, it's very easy as a teacher to see a child looking a little bit down or something, or looking slightly upset or something, thinking, well, they're a bit upset, fine, they'll probably get over it. I'll walk on. I'm not on duty at the moment. Somebody else will probably be able to deal with it. The thing that I found at St. Benedict's is that we've got a real culture now where we call it bystander theory. We talk about, are you going to be a bystander? Are you going to just walk on by? Or are you going to do something about it as a member of staff or indeed as a student? And what we're increasingly finding is that because we say to all our teachers, if you notice any problem, note it down. We've got a rather neat system, which is, I think we're going to be talking about a little bit in the next speech, a system called My Concern. And so every member of staff, if they see a problem, even if they can't do something about it then and there, they note it down. And on My Concern, that goes straight to the tutor of the child. It goes to the safeguarding lead. So all the right people can see that. And that means that, let's say the child has looked a bit upset in your lesson, maybe not a big thing. Let's say 6 teachers during a day all see that child being upset. Then at the end of the day, the person in charge of that student can think, goodness me, 6 different people all thought they're upset. This person needs to be spoken to. And it's something time and again I found incredibly effective in my school, in that little things that might not have picked up on have been found. And so a student, a really sort of good example of that is we're actually being inspected. And so a school inspector saw a student looking a little bit upset in a lesson and said to me, oh, yeah, what's happening with that? So I sent out a message to the people who look after that student and instantly got back reports about these different things. And actually, by the end of the day, that same student who the inspector had said, oh, they look a bit upset, was actually having support with our school counsellor. And it turned out that, in fact, their parents had separated the day before. And actually, because we're so quickly able to pass around information and get the right information to the right people, that sort of support within it, by the end of that working day, was in place for that student. And on a very, as a school leader as well, very good that the school inspectors could note that and see how quickly the school was able to deal with problems. So that's the second key point I'd say, is that, okay, you've trained up all these teachers, you've got them understanding how to look after their students, but of course, not being bystanders, actually diving in there and doing things. And a really good quote I read recently, slightly incongruous, but a very good book called The Habit of Excellence by a colonel in the British Army, in fact, called Langley Sharp. Might seem totally not relevant to pastoral care in schools, but he was talking about just excellence in any field. And he had a really great point that meant that excellence is about doing the right thing time and then time again. And he said, it's not about doing something particularly special, but it's about making sure that every time you're faced with an issue, you'll always do the right thing. And he said in the British Army, that is how they create excellence. And that's something I've been really instilling into my own teachers this year, and has been the heart of my training, is the idea of safeguarding and pastoral excellence, is that every time you're faced with an issue, do the right thing, and you'll make sure that, that everything is going in the right direction, all that pulling together as a team. So we've got our teachers doing the right things and trained to do the right things. I think the other key thing that is a really good development in schools recently is actually focusing on our students as well. Not just, if you like, objects to be taught, but developing them and their own resilience and ability to deal with life around them. And I was interested to see that's very much something that was clearly being talked about yesterday. I noted that the person from LinkedIn talking about the importance of communication, collaboration, curiosity. I was teaching the other day my 16-year-olds and saying that empathy, so very similar sort of trait, is absolutely crucial. And so that's something that, again, we're more and more teaching our students, is that idea of, well, how do you communicate with others? How do you empathize and understand other people? Because then we've got the students looking after each other. And one of the key things we've started to develop in our school is a system of mentoring. So our older students look after the younger students. And that's been a fantastic success, not just for our younger students who love having an older student, a boy in he's aged 11 just coming to the school, having the captain of the first 15 coming and talking to him about his own struggles is fantastic for a young child. But it's also brilliant for the older children. Somebody who can learn about that idea of mentoring, who can get training in being a mentor. They're somebody, when they go to university, when they go into the world of work, they're going to absolutely fly, because they're understanding how to lead, how to look after junior people. Those are the sort of skills that, speaking sort of very much about the next steps, those are the sort of skills that people are really looking for. So it's not only great for the school, but it's great for the individual student. And of course, all the things that go around that training in growth mindset, and also talked a lot here about mental health, but also physical health. Our school is one in which all our students will be getting out doing physical exercise twice a week. In fact, we just had a rugby team touring South Africa in the summer, so I know there's a shared interest in rugby from our school and a lot of schools I'll be talking to now. So that importance of physical health as well as mental health for schools. And the final main point is not only just let's have training our students, but also for us listening to our students. Student voice has become, and I'm really pleased about this, a really important part of running schools in the UK, and is actually a key part of school inspection. So I'm a school inspector as well. And as an inspector, I'll come in and largely I will talk to the students and say, well, what do you think of the school? What do you think of the training? What do you think of how the school is doing this? Because actually, to be honest, that's the main thing. The school can have all sorts of amazing policies and ideas, but actually if the students don't buy into it, well, that's not really going to help so much. So that the final thing is that it's making sure that we're actually giving lots of avenues for students to show their voice. And that's not just in person, but actually, again, a theme of this wider seminar is of using technology. And so we've got apps where students can put in their feedback, and also using sort of Microsoft Forms feedback, those sorts of things. So I can see that my time is coming down, but hopefully those 4 points are all just very practical ones in how we at St. Benedict's are really helping our students to develop and really understand how to become healthy, well-rounded pupils.
Luke, absolutely brilliant. You can see all those thumbs coming up. Before I just say one thing to you, Luke, I think, quick question. In the chat bar, does your school run a peer-to-peer mentoring program or any shape or form? If you do, just say, yes, we do. I'd be interested to see how many schools. So just in the chat bar, go, yes, we do, or we have, or looking to. And then, Luke, Brilliant. I just think that whole idea you said that of changing them from a bystander to participating was absolutely fantastic. And I think that's a key skill our learners need for the future. And it ties in, you mentioned empathy, even the idea of peer mentoring. All of these things are moving them from bystander to being involved. So, Luke, thank you so much. I'm going to ask one question. And while I do that, I'm going to invite Martin on stage. Luke, what is one thing that you recommend any school or any teacher could do in their class tomorrow that would help with learner safeguarding or well-being? Any thought come to mind? I know it's putting you under pressure here.
I'll end. It's the student voice point I meant and ended on. I think it's how are you going and thinking, how are you going to get your students talking to you in the classroom? So, for example, the first thing I say to all my tutors, why don't just go in and say, go around the class, everybody tell their favorite joke. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It's about getting everybody showing their voice and being part of that community.
Fantastic. Luke, I love that. Thank you so much. All right, so Luke's going to stay on in the background while the next speaker comes. Luke mentioned a solution called My Concern, and I think a big thing from our side is not only do we want to give you thought leadership, but we also want to be able to show you and point you to people that can help. So I have to read Martin's CV to you because it's not a usual speaker for a school conference. So Martin is a former chief police officer in the UK who has a 30-year career, including spells in counter-terrorism in London and homicide investigation. He was responsible for all aspects of safeguarding and child protection. So, Martin, you are a very unusual speaker, and I know you have a passion for safeguarding. And the backstory on how we, as Schoolscape, met Martin is we attended the BETS conference, and we met these people at the safeguarding company, and we were just blown away. And actually, one of the South African principals that was traveling with us sat down, looked at their product, and was like, wow, this can really help schools in South Africa. So Martin is from the Safeguarding Company, and I think he has an inside view from all of his experience of why safeguarding is so critical for pupils and learners. And he's going to be sharing a bit on that and also how they can help you in your school. So Martin, welcome on stage.
Thank you very much indeed, Pete. Good to see you again. And it was our great privilege to be over in South Africa in Cape Town and Johannesburg with Schoolscape back in August, and to meet the team and to meet so many educators who are dealing day in and day out with all of the issues that we're talking about today, about how we create our future workers from the children that we're all responsible for. So I do have a number of slides, and I'm going to take you through the slides and hopefully explain why. Really, that's the importance of hopefully of what I'm going to talk about is why we do what we do. So just waiting for the slides to load.
They should be in front of you. Can you see them?
Okay, I can't, but that doesn't mean...
So they are there. I think that's weird that you can't see them. Can everyone else see them, for interest's sake? This is why I do love technology. Keeps us on our toes. I think, Martin, if you would just quickly refresh your screen and let's see if it gives you, because you should be able to see them. Yeah, so just while Martin is doing that, I think a key standout of having met Martin and his team is just that concern or that passion for really helping learners by safeguarding them, and why it's more and more critical. Like Luke in his session mentioned, just being able to see a student and noting something, but not realizing everyone has seen that and there could be a bigger problem. Martin, can you see your slides or not?
I can't, Pete, but I've got them on another machine here, so I'm going to forge on. Okay,
perfect. So at the moment, you've got a slide one that says lessons will be learned.
That's it. That's exactly it. So as Pete said, I'm the CEO of the Safeguarding Company. But as always, two quick confessions. Firstly, I am a recovering police officer. And I was in the police service for a very long time and involved in a lot of child and adult safeguarding. But also, I'm have been a school governor and the trustee of a group of schools called a multi-academy trust in the UK for the last 15 years or so. So I've worked very closely and work every day very closely in education and work in safeguarding. We are safeguardians. That's what we say. And our complete purpose is caring and protecting children and adults all over the world from abuse, harm and neglect. And as Pete mentioned, and I'm not going to talk about this in great detail, but we do provide software products that enable us to support our customers to do that. So my concern we've talked about is all about schools recording and case managing those safeguarding concerns that you see every day. We have schools that enable systems, I beg your pardon, that enable schools to record all the vetting that they do of their staff, to record allegations sadly made against staff, to look at their data over a group of schools, and we also provide accredited training in safeguarding. And one of the things that's coming shortly is that ability as well for students to be able to talk as well through a portal called My Voice. But you'll be aware, and I can hope you can now see
which slide do you want, Martin? I'm your technical backup. Yeah.
Hopefully you're seeing Maslow's hierarchy of school needs.
Yeah, we got it.
Excellent. So I think anybody that's involved in education will have been taught about Maslow at some stage, and I think we all understand that it's incredibly difficult for a child to achieve their full potential if they don't have their basic needs met in terms of their physiological and psychological needs, their safety, their belonging, before they can actually release themselves, in a sense, and give themselves up to the joy of learning, and how difficult that is. And that's what we're trying to create, is this situation where all of our learners can actually be freed from all of those worries and can live their best lives and then go on to do great things. And I think when we think about that, understanding why safeguarding is so important, and then why record keeping about safeguarding is so important, we do need to look at the background to all of the sort of issues that you as educators are currently dealing with. Because as we know, safeguarding is not what it used to be, and not in a good way. You'll appreciate physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse and neglect, which were the primary issues of child protection, are now very much accompanied by a huge wide range of other threats, risks and issues that children are experiencing. And not only suicidal thoughts, but sadly suicide as well, and in pretty significant numbers, as well as sadly the violence that children have to face. And some of the numbers are excruciating. Just looking in South Africa in the last quarter of 2021, 352 children met a violent death. That's 4 children killed each day. And even more survived an attempt on their lives. So these are obviously very disturbing and worrying issues, and the sorts of issues that you are being confronted with in schools. You might see some precursor events to this happening, and you might potentially have the opportunity to intervene and to stop escalation of a situation. But it's clearly very, very worrying indeed. Obviously then, I may have moved forward 2 slides there. the South African Child Gauge and UNICEF looked at mental disorder in children in some detail. And clearly a very, very significant issue will be those mental health issues affecting adolescents and younger children, even in your schools. And as Luke said, without support, professionalism and education, it's incredibly difficult for teachers to be able to not only recognize, but to know what to do if they observe some signs of any of these conditions, and then to be able to point the child and their colleagues into the right situation. And if you look at the number of adolescents that commit suicide each year, it is absolutely breathtaking. And there are huge consequences to these adverse childhood experiences going forward. And this is recorded very significantly in the research that's been done around what are called adverse childhood experiences, ACEs. And this underpins a lot of the safeguarding practice in the UK and elsewhere. But an adverse childhood experience are potentially traumatic events that occur in childhood from birth to the age of 17 that can clearly have a lifelong impact on a child's health and well-being. And obviously there's a huge range of issues that can give rise to adverse childhood experiences. Quite often people talk about domestic violence, mental illness amongst parents, and drug or alcohol abuse. They're called here the toxic trio, but there are many, many of these issues that can affect a child during childhood, and including experiencing violence or witnessing violence, having a family member commit suicide or to attempt suicide, or growing up in a household where many of these factors are observed and experienced by the child. So it's really important that we actually are able to intervene early and to put in the levels of help during childhood to make sure that we can prevent many of these things from happening. And it really is so clear that if we don't, there can be some very serious consequences. Because children who experience 4 or more of these adverse childhood experiences as adults have some very, very serious and significant consequences for their well-being as they become adults. And I'm not going to read all of those lines out, and you will have access to the slides afterwards. But as you can see, intervening to prevent adverse childhood experience is so incredibly important if we want our children to go on to be successful, healthy and happy in later life. So, you know, this is at the heart of what educators are involved in helping children with every single day. If you experience 6 or more of these adverse childhood experiences, you can die 20 years earlier than children who don't have them. And you're 14 times more likely to attempt suicide. And in the USA, this has been described as the single greatest unaddressed public health threat facing our nation today. So incredibly important, the role that you all play, and I cannot emphasize strongly enough my admiration and support for what you do, because it's such a factor in ensuring that children are protected and made more resilient and are able to cope with some of these experiences, or we prevent them, or we prevent the escalation that leads to them. So what are the implications for safeguarding? Well, we've looked at 1,400 serious case reviews following the death or serious injury to children in the UK, going back to 1948 to today. And what do they all repeatedly say? Maintain proper case management records. Write stuff down. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. Record all concerns, even those that appear minor. And this really was reinforced by Luke in what he was saying about everybody noticing that change in a child that really needs to be reported. Repeated minor concerns can be observed by many individuals, and recording them all can help you to identify that rising tide of harm. It's really important to intervene early to prevent harm or the escalation of harm, and to share information both within your school and also between the agencies that you work with. And you'll have legal obligations for certain levels of child protection concerns that have to be reported to the police, for example. But there will be many things that don't reach that threshold, but still need to be recorded and still need to be shared. And working in partnership with other professionals is a really important part of being successful at safeguarding. It's also really important to provide that professional and emotional support to staff. Luke described the really great work that he's been doing in training and preparing his staff to deal with these issues when they're confronted with them and to know how to respond. And it really is hugely important that your staff are supported as well as your children. Finally, really important to collect and analyze safeguarding data. When you write stuff down, that gives you the opportunity to gather data and to be able to see trends, to see rising tide incidents. Because through your data, you can develop insight and you can also develop foresight. You can see what might be coming next. So it's really important to gather that data, keep records, and to be able to analyze it and learn lessons from your own professional practice and from others. Because again, incredibly important to be constantly developing your understanding and your professional safeguarding practice. So what are the implications for educators? Well, you're in the best possible position to spot things going wrong and to help put things right. And thank goodness for you. And at the very heart of what we do is to support people in schools responsible for safeguarding. We work with 6,000 schools in 56 countries around the world. And we work with 25,000 safeguarding leads who are supporting about 1.25 million students. So it's incredibly important that you do what you do. And we should never lose sight of how important it is that you are able to contribute to the safety of those children and their future lives, and how important that is. And it's all part of an integrated model of safeguarding in education, because everything that you do is predicated on joining things up in your setting. So making sure that your governance, leadership and management, your plan to prevent harm, the way you record and case manage, how you work with other people, how you manage your data and your information, how you support your people and teams, the rich picture that you can get from your data, and the lessons that you learn and embed in your own practice all sit within developing a culture of safeguarding that for your organization means that everyone understands what the objective is, what's required of them, and they all work to support each other as a team. I've worked with many thousands of schools, and it's wonderful to walk into a school when the head teacher just randomly asks a passing member of staff to explain to me what they're doing to support their children. And the staff are so proud of what they do and are so willing to tell me when I'm visiting a school, because they are very, very proud and very committed to what they do. And that's because they're actually basing their whole approach on a values-based approach to leadership. And everyone is a leader at every level in a school. And we see so many different attitudes to safeguarding in the schools that we see. And actually, we see everything from outright denial. We do not have a problem here. Through, we only do it to comply. We make sure that we're able to tick boxes. Through people drowning students in love when something badly goes wrong, this reactive response. Actually, what we're looking for is value-based leadership that focuses on preventing harm and preventing the escalation of harm. And really, really important that that's the approach that we take in safeguarding, a preventative approach. As Luke said, we do provide software that enables educators to record and submit their concerns quickly, easily, for the person responsible for helping to manage those concerns to track them and case manage them, and to then be able to get the data that you need to be able to spot those trends and to embed those lessons learned from your safeguarding practice. And record keeping is just so incredibly important for many, many reasons. Obviously, identifying problems early, enabling you to see the big picture, enabling you to anticipate future harm, helping you to comply with the law, helping your work with other agencies, helping you to provide reports, really important for your governors and for your leaders, providing really good records of actions and key decisions. Really important to write down why you took a decision, as well as the fact that you took a decision. Even if your decision was to do nothing, it's incredibly important that you record why in those circumstances. And really importantly, demonstrating to your learners, to your families, to staff, stakeholders, and your community that you take this stuff seriously. And it builds trust with your staff and other people in your environment, including, obviously, your learners. Make sure that you're obviously reporting consistently. Really importantly for your staff, it provides reliable evidence of what happened and of right doing, as we call it. In other words, the action they took to try and help. And it's really important to record that evidence. And it also helps you identify the additional support that your learners need, and also how you can identify ways of making more effective use of existing resources. So again, really, really crucially important to maintain proper safeguarding records, because it helps you in so many, many different ways. One of the resources that we offer completely free of charge is a safeguarding community. And you can go and join the community online, where there are thousands of other safeguarding educators from around the world, all talking to each other, all sharing good practice, who are able to support you if you've got a question, if you want to provide information to help somebody else, or if you've got a situation that you're dealing with that you need support for. That community is out there for you, free, 24/7, 365, and I really would encourage you to join. And thank you so much for your attention this afternoon.
Martin, that was absolutely, I think my takeaway, and if my co-host Iceman is in the background anywhere, please jump on stage. Martin, I think my biggest takeaway is it reiterates how important the role of a teacher is. That little thing that they noting could be the difference of that kid having 6 incidents or 20 incidents, which means by the time they hit the working world or adulthood, just the concern for them. So this is not even about producing healthy future workers. This is just about their safety and who they are. So that really stood out, that the small things. So I'm going to ask Jared what stood out to him. Iceman, any comments from your side?
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, I'll comment on both talks actually. So they obviously intersect a lot. So, the idea of developing a culture of safeguarding, building resilience for young learners, supporting diversity, acknowledging difference, nurturing difference. This all takes time and space. And if there's one thing that teachers don't have a lot of, that's time and space. And so what I really liked, one of the slides there was around this values-based leadership. And, if we can encourage and instill that idea or that concept into schools, from the very top, then that will inform all the other policies and procedures that will hopefully then allow for that time and space to prioritize and do the things that is so necessary.
Brilliant, Jared. And I think one thing I'd like to also say, you mentioned staff as teachers. You don't have time to do this. And I think that's why the solution, and that's, I think, why we fell in love with the solution that Safeguarding Company has, that My Concern, is it's so easy for you just on an app to go noted something. So you don't have to go find someone and tell them. You can just do it on an app, and that all syncs up. So instead of trying to, it actually allows you to note a concern quickly and easily without the effort. And I think that's really stood out to me as well. So Martin, I think absolutely brilliant. We have a poll. If you would like the safeguarding team to reach out to you to give you more info, please pop onto the poll. If you say yes, it enables us to ask them to contact you. You can also say no. We're also going to make it a bit more fun. So if you fill in a poll today, even if you say no, you stand a chance to win a 500 Rand take a lot voucher for you. Not for the school. So, Martin, any last comments before we drop you off stage?
No, it's such a privilege, actually, to be able to talk to the guys online today. This is why we exist, and to be able to share that and to be able to offer whatever support we can, is a real privilege for us. So I really, really welcome the opportunity to engage with people. We could spend hours and days. We're working on a university course around safeguarding at the moment. There's just so much to it. But if you get the basics right, you are well on the way.
Brilliant. Martin, thank you so much. So everyone, please fill in that poll. I know Martin and team have shown commitment to the country and are supporting schools here locally with their superb product. So please do reach out to them. All right. We are now going to move across to our next speaker. So I'm going to invite Dean onto stage. So Dean sent us a comment which just blew me away, and we thought we knew the kind of the safeguarding might need something a little bit more, not necessarily lighthearted, but something a little bit differently to come in. Just around 60% of jobs will not look the same by 2030. So this means we are in for so the learners in your class that you are preparing for a job that you don't even know exists are always going to look completely different. So our experts in this regard is Dean from MySocialife. They have been supporting schools in a variety of areas, and I know he'll share more about that. But Dean, I'm quite excited as you just dive into that future worker and also how you can support schools. So over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Pete, Goose and Maverick. Unbelievable double act that we're experiencing here today. So thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for everybody for being here. You guys really do. Martha just said something about you're doing, I shouldn't say better job, but you're doing the job that the DBE should. And I completely echo that. That is an amazing comment, Martha. So thank you so much to all of you. So just very briefly, my name is Dean McCoubrey. I'm from a company called MySocialife. We've been around for about 4 years. In fact, I see a lot of the schools, the Western Province Preps, Kingswoods, DSGs, Redhams. We've taught in all of those. And what we teach is our HERO program is an 8-lesson digital life skills program, which deals with privacy, security, reputation, digital values, sexuality online, cyberbullying and empathy, and so on. And I think when I was offered this opportunity to speak, I wanted to jump at it because I always hear this term, the future of work. And I immediately think that the future of work is our future workers, right? And how will our future workers pan out when we don't know what the rest of this decade is going to do? I saw that Meta just launched the new virtual reality goggles, Meta Pro Quest, yesterday, I think it was, and they're being reviewed at the moment. And the speed of evolution / revolution is absolutely, it's so mind-boggling that when we are inside classes at the moment, I cannot believe what is being said to me by the students at a younger and younger age. So the surveys that we have, that we send to schools and then they send back to us, is that 60% of students were spending more than 3 hours than they were pre-COVID, so pre-March 2022. That now 60% of them are spending more than 3 hours online. That is from grade 6 to 11. And within that, when we asked them what the number one lesson that they wanted to receive from us out of those 8 lessons, number one was mental health. It has never not been mental health. That is mind-bending for me. The number two at about 20%, so that was at about 31%, at 20% is attention and focus. And I think there's a very direct correlation between those two things. So what I wanted to say, I shared a stand next to Martin Baker, so hi Martin. I really agree with what you say. To some degree, the area that I work in, social media, can seem a little bit like, really, social media? But when you're talking about that hierarchy of needs in a student, if they're experiencing physical violence and so on, then, what I'm talking about is next to nothing. But I think that there is something really important that I want to emphasize. And that is that another aspect of our survey that we offered to students was to ask them who would they speak to when they were experiencing a mental health issue. And the school counselor received less than 5% of votes consistently, never ever broke 5%. Now, that doesn't mean that the school council isn't amazing. It actually means that this prism of life online is a very sensitive one, and it feels like people don't get it. So I think the piece that I want to talk about is relatability. If you remember one word from what I say, I was listening to Luke at the beginning, everything that everybody has said is absolutely spot on. But how do we stop our kids from tuning out, where they don't listen to the adults because there's a technological and generational divide? How do we get them to look and go, not bad, good one? Because that's where the message lands, that's where the memory is forged, and that's where they can save themselves or pull the resilience lever or consider, some aspect of critical thinking, some critical thinking tool that they can pull. So I just want to leave that word of relatability, and you're going to see what's going to come. So very briefly, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think John Sarney spoke about something this morning. I watched it and I was really impressed. And he said, let's go back in time and have a look at what happened in the industrial revolutions. You can see it on the screen. And any of you history buffs out there, don't correct me because I had to borrow this because I'm not the cleverest. But ultimately, if we look at what happened with these industrial revolutions, certain things were usurped by the following industrial revolution. So it used to be about physical brawn, we would work in the fields. And then we developed, tractors and vehicles to do that. And then we had the automobile and the airplane and the combustion engine. And then we had electronics and telecoms and computers. The point is that the human, one of the great skills or the strengths of the human during that time continues to be usurped. And what we're seeing, if it's true, what the World Economic Forum says, is that 60% of the jobs will not look the same by 2030. Where are humans going to be? And Don Tane was saying this morning was that he said that's why there's so much uncertainty. Do we know where we fit in this decade? We're watching this crazy world, this society, this explosive trajectory of technology. We're seeing artificial intelligence, machine learning, VR, AR. And where does that leave us? Where does that leave you in your job? Where does that leave our children? We don't know because of that stratospheric pace of change. So this is my point today, is that we have to develop new skills. If physical strength is not necessarily one of the key factors in our success going forward, and a number of other things, it even feels like our intelligence, our technological ability may be replaced by technology. Our ability to manage technology could just be replaced by technology itself. And so my point really is to come to here. I'm just going to go straight to this. If technology has proven to usurp human strength and human intelligence, what's left? I think this is what's left. I think we're better than any supercomputer, any smartphone. I think that there's an essence, there's a magic, there's something in the ether that we can pull out. Things like intuition, creativity. You look at something like Midjourney. I'm not sure if any of you know about the artificial intelligence creative tool, Midjourney. You can put in a couple of keywords and it will create you a phenomenal piece of art. A piece of art that something like Publicis Group, the great advertising agency, would dream that their creatives could create. That's what's possible. It's been winning art fair prizes, and yet all it is a couple of keystrokes, and then you press enter, and 60 seconds later, it mashes together all of these different pixels to create a piece of art. And while that's absolutely phenomenal, there are aspects, invisible aspects of being human that are absolutely so important. We are the ones that can pull magic from the ether. But how do we show our kids that they can do that? How do we get them to understand that in this uncertainty, one of the great certainties is who they are, their unique difference, and that if they use that unique difference for good, it could be humor, it could be mathematical skills, it could be, you could be a gamer, you could be an influencer, but are you using it for good or bad? Because there's a reason why we're born and we're placed on the earth. You can call it spirit, you can call it purpose, you can call it a reason for being or existentialism, but ultimately we're here for something. And my view is I want to try and get kids to understand that. Now, of course, if I was one of you guys on that side, you'd be like, whoa, this guy just got way too deep and kids don't understand that. Well, I've spent 4 years in the classrooms with them, and the lens through which I teach is social media. And it is amazing what a Trojan horse social media is. So our kids, here they are. We try and explain to them that they're these beautiful new shiny iPhone 14. Some of you will have seen this slide before, but it's very important. Metaphor tells beautiful stories. And we say to them, what are you? And they're like, I'm a Huawei, and I hate Android, and what are you talking about? And then they start whispering and they start talking to each other. You have engagement. One of the previous speakers had mentioned, like, how do you get kids talking? You said, ask a quiz or get them to ask each other a question. Ask them something about what happened on social media. Ask them about Kanye being fired from Adidas in these last few days. You will see this swarm of information and how they perceive things. And it offers you the opportunity, the doorway to then teach them, as long as you're listening a lot. So what we want to do is we want to understand that our kids are these wonderful things that are shiny and new. Well, we've got a few scratches. Each one has this entirely unique operating system. So what should be in their iOS 2030? What should we be seeding and what should we be planting? When you're talking about well-being, which is the purpose of this, we're talking about future workers and we're talking about well-being. We need to understand is what are we seeding? What are we installing? How much attention have we placed on modern life skills? We have life orientation, but do we have modern life skills? Do we have that Trojan horse that we can wheel in and say, hey guys, ta-da, and they're like, yo, we got a social media class, which is what happens. And then I use that lens, that prism of talking about social media to teach modern life skills. It is really, honestly, I just love the job that I do, as you can tell. So one of the great ways that we look at it is we want kids to understand that they have They are somewhere on this spectrum digitally. When you talk about DQ or digital citizenship, some of them are like using it for good. Some of it are, able to be self-regulated. Others might be more towards the darker side of the spectrum, and they could perhaps be looking at too much adult content, or they could find themselves in obsessive behavior. But they're not one thing or the other. They may have one hand over in, I use my device for e-learning and I study hard, but they could also have a problem with pornography. They are not kind of single lens individuals. They're these complex individuals, a little bit like Twister. You kind of have your hand here and the other hand over here, and then one foot over here and another foot over here. And you're this mixture of things on this spectrum. The spectrum, the dark and light of what they're experiencing online. If they can't see where they are on this spectrum, how can we help them move towards the light? It's really, really difficult. We have to show them what the benefits are of the light, of incredibly sound thinking, of being the smartest in the group, of being the most intuitive, being the most insightful. We talk about them being like the savviest investigators of them all. I think there we go. Thank you. And then once we get that, we can start to move them into that spectrum of color. That spectrum of color is them, the essence of them. Like, everybody's different. Look at Jared, look at Pete. They're so different to me, but they're so insane in what they are able to do and the goodness that they're bringing into the world. But we couldn't be really more different. And I'm certainly not Maverick or Goose. I wish I was. But ultimately, we want to get these kids to understand where they are online. And how is it influencing their mindset? What opportunities do they have as future workers? And how are they going to explode into color? Because what we put in is what we put out. So we need to understand, what are they doing then if they're spending 4 hours on this where there's highly sexualized content? Am I judging it and saying that they shouldn't? No. I need to show you what this is, what it does, what that sexualized content can make you think, feel, do, habitualize, and so on. I just want to tell you about it so that you can challenge it. It's really fascinating. They need, to what you guys are saying, emotional support. But how do they get it? Who do they feel that they can relate to? That's what the essence is. Because if they don't, there becomes this internal resistance in yourself. I know, I've had a burnout. I've experienced anxiety for 30 years. I'm not ashamed of it. In fact, it was one of the greatest gifts of my life. And that's why I can say it completely, to know what all-encompassing anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder looks like. And it is bubbling over into anxiety, depression, OCD, and self-harm. And we're seeing kids cut more than any other thing. We teach the Red Cross Children's Hospital Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Unit, and they are saying that self-harm is literally stratospheric. So the solution here, let's get into solutions, is we actually need to bring everybody together. So we teach the parents, we teach the teachers, we teach preteens and teens, and we teach educational psychiatrists and student counselors. And we talk to them about the landscape that's influencing what's going on in here, where the different kids may have their hands placed on their Twister spectrum, if that makes any sense. And EdTech has made it easier because we now can teach all of those different audiences, 5 different audiences coming together to tighten the net on both online safety and this is the key, opportunity for the future. What if we don't look like old bullies that don't know what we're talking about, and we take this interest? We can change the way it works. But the missing ingredient is this. And this is a world first and launched today. I was so lucky to get on this. So Annika, can you play this? This is for teens. Annika, I'm hoping you're there.
I'm hoping she's there too.
Me too.
Is she playing a video for you?
What makes me come alive?
Dean, you are muted. Sorry, the system mutes when the video plays.
Oh, sorry, is that better? Am I back?
You're back, and you've got 1 minute.
1 minute, yeah. So, Annika, if I could have my slides back, all I wanted to say was today we launched that because if you remember the word that I said is, I think there's an immense opportunity, that our great challenge of social media is actually our opportunity to listen to the thing that ignites them, makes them go crazy, makes them talk. It is the opportunity to air it, but two, I think it was Luke's point, or perhaps it was Jared's point, is how are they then, how are the teachers supported to be able to handle it? That is very important, but we play that role with this 22-minute current affairs show. We use Gen Z presenters. They are the mouthpiece of relatability to tackle all of these issues. So we have a program for pre-teens, and we also have a program for teens, this one, which as we think is the world's first ever social media current affairs video show in schools. And we're really delighted to share it with you. And I think that you would be amazed. I just wish people could come into my class with thousands, I don't know how many tens of thousands of students I've taught now, to see that this offers this most insane avenue for connection and teaching. That's it.
Dean, love it. I was about to ask, could you not send us an email or all the teachers a daily email to tell them what that Trojan horse is that they should be talking about? Because you are right, if we can grab them on their level. So because I got Iceman on stage and because I'm Maverick, you can be Goose. But guys, we are slightly behind schedule, so I am going to bring our next speaker onto stage. Sonika, if you're on the background, please jump on. If you would like Dean and his team to reach out to you, there is a poll that should be going live now. So if you want to get more information on how you see those clips that show, and I think it's brilliant, Dean, what you guys are doing, just building that content. It's just so relevant. So if you would like some more on that, please do fill in that poll. Just a reminder, if you enter any poll today, if you say yes or no, every time you enter a poll, it means you get in on our 500 Rand Take a Lot voucher. One life, make it count. Dean, thank you so much. I'm going to drop you off. Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, brilliant. We are on to two more speakers. So Jared, I'm going to keep you to give a comment a little bit later. So we've got Sonika, then followed by that, we've actually got a primary school headmaster who is passionate about teaching values. So he's our final speaker. I don't want to say we saved the best for last because we've got another great speaker ahead of us. So on stage with me is Sonika, and she is from, I believe, an incredible piece of technology that can help you. I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Xono, XOXO, Kisso? Sonika, how do I pronounce it correctly?
Pete, it is Xono.
Oh, and none of my options were right.
If you were right, I was going to offer you a Take a Lot voucher from me personally, but sorry about that.
I got that one wrong. All right. So just for our audience out there, what we really wanted to do is give you some thinking just around kind of safeguarding and protecting our learners, but we also wanted to show you real tools that we can use. And this is a tool that we've come across that we believe could be game changing in your school. So Sonika, the floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Pete. My mother tells me I'm a bit of a talker, so please do tell me when my time comes close to an end.
Cool. You've got 10 minutes. I'll jump on in your last 30 seconds.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I feel like, gosh, the speakers that we've had so far today has really just paved the way for this conversation, and it's just been amazing. And the information collected and the insights about what is happening in our children's lives today has just been amazing. And so something that we have created is called an application called Xono. And this really came about, again, during COVID. As terrible as COVID was, I think there's a lot of blessings and good things that has come from that time that we have spent being isolated. And like the gentleman said in the previous talks, mental health has taken such a toll. We know that we've been talking to adults about their mental health. And I think for some time we have neglected that that children also face these challenges, and therefore our children have started showing it in different ways: self-harm, suicidal attempts, the list goes on, and we've seen the statistics. We thought, we know that children have access to cell phones. We know that the cell phone is stuck in their hand like the TV remote, it was stuck in my dad's hand growing up. It's something that they connect with. We know as adults that it is hard to speak up, that it's difficult to go to someone and say, I'm having a bad day. I'm not well. I'm having thoughts that scare me, and I don't like the way you treat me. And even more so for someone who is that young to speak up about something that makes them feel so unsafe, when people have been bullied. And we know that these things lead to anxiety. These things can lead to depression, and so it escalates. And we also know that this is happening in school, unfortunately, regardless of how safe we try and make the environment. This is happening at home. This is happening online. And we know that even when something is happening at home, that influences the child's ability to learn in the classroom. And everything that happens in their lives influences their ability to function as a human being, to function and to learn, to absorb, and that influences who they become as an adult and what they do or how they react to other people again. And so what we have created is a mobile application. Like I said, children like their cell phones, and they're on their cell phones all the time. We've created an anonymous safeguarding and reporting platform. We help children to report issues like bullying, like cheating, like racism, like abuse, whether it's at home, whether it's school, whether it's amongst their friends. And like I said, it's anonymous. We don't capture any of their details, so it is compliant to the child's safety. And we know that they find it easier to type how they feel and to speak to someone when their identity is kept safe. And we know that school-based bullying prevention programs have decreased bullying by 25%. And we believe that this will even help that even more. So what does this application do? Basically, what happens is the pupil, the learner, will download the app from the App Store for free. They will put the organization code, which is the school code that we will provide you, into the app, and they will have a conversation with either your social worker or teacher, whoever would be monitoring this web application on the school side. We don't have access to the data. Nobody else has access to the data but the school. And therefore, we encourage the school to continue following the protocols and the procedures that they have in place, and to use an application like this to enhance that in order to reach each and every child. For the social worker or the teacher that is monitoring the dashboard, it is basically a web browser, so you can access it anywhere as long as you have your laptop and you have an internet connection. And what's amazing is the conversation between you and the pupil will look very much like a WhatsApp conversation. It's messaging back and forth. The student can send you photos or videos if they have any to share. And what we've created is a downloadable and printable report. So we know that maybe what has happened in the past is maybe someone's come to you and they've spoken to you, but it's a busy day, right? It's at break time and there's classes to be taught, there's sports, there's prep for the next day, there's supper to make, there's your own family. And by the time you sit and you think of what the student has told you and you write a report, half of it has been forgotten. And this is a brilliant way of them sending the messages in. There's no way of misinterpreting what they've said, their language, their words, everything they've said exactly like that will be captured on this report. Your notes that are added to the report, the dates, the time capture, everything happens automatically. And you can categorize it as bullying, as racism, whichever category your school decides on and that you feel it falls under. What's brilliant is you can print that and you can use that for your reports. You can use that for, if it needs to, we would hope it wouldn't escalate, but if it needs to escalate to something legally that you need to report, then that can be used as well. And then something nice we've added to the dashboard is detailed analytics. So let's say your school is running anti-bullying. I'm using bullying because it's been such a big trend. But as an example, anti-bullying campaign or awareness, then you can go and see after you've done this, what are the reports that you've gotten back from the children? Which months are you getting more reports of feeling sad and feeling low? Is it during exam times? And how many bullying instances have you had? How many racism? How many LGBTQ related instances? And another extra feature that we've added is that you can send surveys to the children, and I think it's Dean that said that they do the surveys with the children, and it's amazing what you will learn when somebody trusts you or when somebody feels comfortable and safe enough to speak up. And by using this survey, their identity is anonymous, and they will give you true answers to what is happening in their lives, true answers to how they're experiencing their school life, their classroom setup, their peers. And another, just a nice feature that we've added is that you can send articles to the children as well. So where other applications communicate with the parents, this communicates with the children directly. And it's lovely. You can put an article and send it to their phone regarding 5 tips to managing exam stress, or well done to John Smith. He has won in our local, I don't know, talk competition, local chess matches. You know, you can really brag about what's happening, but you can also encourage the children with articles that will help them. And what we have, what we've added, just, I know a lot of people ask about the security, and it becomes a very technical thing, so I don't want to go into it too much, but we can have this conversation separately. But why is this so safe? First of all, because it's anonymous and it makes the child feel safe. Secondly, because we don't capture their names, we don't capture their cell phone numbers, we don't capture IP addresses, IMEI numbers. Very similar to a banking app, when the message is sent from the mobile to the dashboard, same as you would make a payment, that data is encrypted and it would need to be decrypted for anyone to know what it says. So it is highly, highly secure and very anonymous. And just before I end, I just want to say that we often, a lot of us know the story about this boy that's standing on the seashore, and all these starfish have washed out, and he's standing there and he's picking up one for one and throwing them back into the ocean, picking up another one and tossing it back into the ocean. And this old guy comes past him and he says, "Gosh, you're wasting your time. You'll never be able to save all these starfish." And as he picks one up and he tosses it back into the water, he says, "No, but for this one, I've made a difference." And we know we can't save everyone. We know that it's just impossible, but we know that we can make a difference to one child's life that is speaking up about what is happening. And that means that person's going to one day make a difference to someone else's life, and they're going to be a better adult. And that's going to escalate to the next person and the next person and the next person. So Pete, we had this offer when we did our FETSAS webinar, and because Schoolscape and FETSAS is linked, and that is how we were introduced to Schoolscape, we would like to extend the same special to the schools. This specific one was for the remainder of 2022. We will give this application for free to the schools to try it out. And what we would do for Schoolscape is for the remainder of 2022, which is very, very short, but also for the first term of 2023, we would like to extend it for them to use for free, to try it out, to play around with it, give us feedback. There's a lot that we have in the pipeline of features we want to add, multi-languages, extra fun things for the kids. So for them to give us feedback would be amazing. And if anyone's interested, they can just contact me.
That's brilliant. Sonika, I think popped a poll on that should be live now as well. Also, if you want to just reach out, we'll share your contact details to Sonika, who can then give you that offer. But we love free offers, and we love it when people can try out stuff. And I think what I've really enjoyed, and I'm going to invite our final speaker to come on stage. Well, before he does, a quick comment from Iceman. What stood out to you?
No, it's all really good stuff. I really liked what Dean was saying around being human and the importance of relating to each other, and feeling safe enough to share, which is what Sonika is talking about here. I think they tie in very, very much so. So yeah, loving it.
Brilliant. So everyone, please reach out to Sonika and team. You can fill in that poll. What I really like is where Martin and the team from the safeguarding were talking about you jotting down concerns. This is a way for the pupils to share concerns independently. So absolutely fantastic. So Sonika, thank you for being on stage with us, and thank you for, we always love special offers. So schools, please grab that offer. Thank you. All right. And now I can say we've saved the best for last. The person peering intently into his screen is the head of Rhenish Primary School. So very close to my heart, as Alex is the person who is looking after my snotty-nosed children. So very appreciative of what he does. But more than that, Alex has a passion just for this whole idea of ethics and values and the pastoral side of learners. And we thought it was really important. We focused, and it's easy to look at this from a high school point of view. Alex now is presently in a primary school, but he's also worked across kind of different schools. And yeah, he's what we believe is an expert in this regard and passionate about it. So Alex, thank you for being here. Thank you for being live. Thank you for looking after my children. Sorry to keep you waiting, but the floor is yours.
Hi, Peter. Thanks so much. I'm just going to start my clock because, as prep school headmasters, we tend to ramble on a little bit. So I've got my timer on there. Yeah, Peter, listen, thank you so much for the invitation. Whether I'm an expert or not is highly questionable. We had our a PTA function on Friday night, and it was a quiz night, and my team came stone last. So I look forward to boring all of you for the next 15 minutes.
Well, the good news is because my team came stone last time, I didn't enter. So
well, I have the trophy in my office at the moment, Peter. So that's all good. Yeah, folks, it really is good to sort of just to jump online and of course, you always run the risk of being the last one that you might repeat what other people have said. And also, I'm feeling a little bit under pressure, with Peter saying that the last speaker yesterday blew his mind. So hopefully I won't blow too badly out of the park, and I'm going to try really hard and make the most of this 10 minutes that we do spend together. And again, I think I've done some work with Dean in two schools, and in fact, he came and he spoke to our parents here at Rhenish early on in the year, and it's always good to hear what Dean has to share. But of course, he stole my thunder a little bit. So when Peter asked me to chat, this was the very, very first thing that came to my mind. And I saw this 13 years ago, and I'm sure most of you have seen this. There's been a variety of sort of updated versions of this particular animation. Goes by Shift Happens or Did You Know? And one of the slides, it says, we are currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. So that is crazy and mind-blowing, and particularly for us in the junior school field. So I saw this 13 years ago, and the world was very different 13 years ago. I think I was on a a Samsung Galaxy 2 in those days, and I was pretty proud of that. And I've since seen the light, and I'm waiting for my iPhone 14 upgrade, but of course there's none in stock anywhere in the country, so I'll have to sit and wait for that one. But it made me think that the grade ones that I have in my school at the moment, and the grade ones across the country and across the world, in 13 years' time, they're going to be entering their first year of tertiary education, if that still exists, or they're going to be entering to the workplace. And what's that going to look like? And I think that really is the sort of the scary stuff. I think my phone's been listening to me recently as well, because literally 2 days after chatting to Pete and being bullied into presenting today, and I'm joking, Peter, I'm happily here, this popped up on my LinkedIn feed. And I'm not sure if you can see it very clearly there, but just take a second or two and sort of give me a thumbs up by the time we get to the bottom. It shouldn't take you much longer than that. Now, at first, when I read this, I thought, geez, like, who is this guy? And it's quite funny. There seems to be a theme on this webinar of police officers. And this was actually a retired chief of police and the ex-city manager of Dixon City. I was very relieved when I read the bottom line there of old school top-down power and control leadership is on its way to extinction. He further goes on to sort of speak about the sort of soft skills. And those are sort of what he mentions here: empathy, rapport, trust, self-awareness, relationships, coaching, mentoring, influence. And he refers to these as the smart skills, but often they also actually are referred to as the essential skills. And these skills focus on human connection, and because that is really what leadership is all about. It's about people. And I enjoyed what Dean shared with us. And in fact, somebody shared with me the other day, we're called human beings for a reason, because we need to be human. We're not human doers, we actually are human beings. And I quite like that. Right, so moving on, and I really want to get through this quite quickly so I can get to the nitty-gritty stuff at the end. I shared this TEDx talk by Gavin McCormack on how education can save the world. Now, Gavin actually is originally a Montessori teacher and a headmaster, currently doing work in, I think, Australia and Asia, if memory serves me correctly. And he spoke of the essential skills of love, compassion, empathy, I know that's been spoken about earlier on today, and understanding. He also mentions this idea of confidence to try and the resilience to fail. And I really like that, and particularly in primary schools and in high schools and the workplace as well. We need to give our children that space where they don't fear failure, but they have the resilience and perhaps the grit, some of Angela Duckworth's sort of work, to actually try again. Now, many of you, I'm sure, have read Daniel Pink's book on called Drive and the amazing truth about what motivates people. And he speaks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And if we can get to that sweet spot in the middle, and we can do this even for our little ones too. You know, you give that preschooler the autonomy to just get out there and to just play. You give them the opportunity to master that skill, maybe on the monkey bars or the swing or whatever it might be. They all of a sudden start to understand their purpose. And if we can get to that sweet spot, really, that's kind of the area where I do believe our children begin to flourish. Tony Wagner, I came across his work probably about 12 years ago or so, the American education specialist. And he mentions that today knowledge is free. It's like air, it's like water. There's no competitive advantage to knowing more than the person next to you. The world doesn't care what you know. What the world cares about is what you can do with what you know. And as you know, everything is pretty much at the tip of a Google search nowadays. So Tony developed 7 survival skills for the 21st century. And I'm not even going to go through those, but I'll just park that there for a while. And whilst we try to integrate that into what we do in the primary schools, I think that this is an area of growth, especially for our high school friends. Not too dissimilar, and I heard mention of sort of the 3 C's, the 4 C's. This is a graphic that I found on the 7 C's, the essential skills of 21st learning. It's very, very obviously sort of topical and has been for quite some time, actually. So that really is kind of what can we expect in the future? Where are we going with these little people of ours? But for me, the why, and there's no better person than our good old Simon Sinek, the why man, to sort of give us a reason why we do need to start to rethink and kind of reshape the way that we are looking at values. And Simon says that we're drawn to leaders and organizations that are good at communicating what they believe. Their ability to make us feel like we belong, to make us feel special, safe, and not alone. It is part of what gives them the ability to inspire us. And there's a lot of truth in that. So here we go. So first and foremost, we need to develop schools where children belong. Every child, in fact, every human needs a sense of belonging, a sense of acceptance. So we really, really need to start working on that. And given the sort of context and the world that we live in today, it's not always easy to find a space for every child and every staff member and every parent where they truly, really feel like they belong. But that really needs to be the end goal. I absolutely love this little picture on the left-hand side. The 3 generations, I think grandpa on the right, dad on the left, grandpa on the right, and little man behind. And particularly at primary school levels, our pupils learn through example. And the teachers need to be that good example. We need to constantly mimic our core values, and we need to embed these values in all of our messaging, in our assemblies, our lessons, our newsletters, blogs, social media platforms, etc. It really is important to sort of just drill that home. And none of this is earth-shattering. We all, majority of us will be in schools, and we've either developed our core values or they were there already when you arrived. And I was very pleased when I arrived at Rhenish, I only began here at the beginning of the year, that our 4 core values here are respect, integrity, compassion, and honesty. So we often tell our boys and girls that they really are rich. And it's just a nice acronym for our little ones to understand that. We dig down a little bit more into this, and I can't claim glory for this. It was during my time in KwaZulu-Natal working with a certain Simon Weaver, where we really looked at respect and we focused hard on the respect. And we spoke about 4 respects: that you have to respect your faith, you have to respect yourself, you have to respect others, and you have to respect the environment. Now, sort of probably the 12, 13 years where I've been dealing with these 4 respects, I often challenge the children that if they can think of a single law in the country or a rule in the school's code of conduct that isn't covered by these 4 respects, then they can have my car. Anyway, needless to say, I've never had to give away my car up until now. Maybe these Rhenish kids will be super clever and they'll find a loophole. So more recently, for some of our staff here, not so recent for me, but I've attended my first positive education conference at St Andrews pre-COVID, probably about 4 years ago, and was fortunate to attend a second sort of online conference during COVID. And recently, 2 weeks ago, attended a conference at St Peter's Schools in Johannesburg. And basically, the idea of positive psychology, and some people think it seems a little bit wishy-washy, and we're talking about positive toxicity and things like that. The name of it has sort of changed and morphed and developed a little bit, and a lot of people refer to it as wellness education or wellness psychology, which I personally quite like. It's very different to sort of your original typical clinical psychology or your sort of traditional psychology that we used to. There somebody was diagnosed with a mental illness. They were suffering. They were battling. They were below that neutral line, and then we'd sort of put therapies in place. We'd try and assist, and we'd try to get them sort of back to normal or just over normal. Where really, in a nutshell, the idea of positive psychology is the assumption that we don't have to diagnose somebody, but what we want to do is we want to take them from their current space and we want to move them up that wellness scale to an area where they're not just surviving anymore, but they actually are thriving and they're flourishing. So this is quite a new area, particularly for our school, and it literally was introduced to our staff members here on Monday, a little bit earlier with my senior management team. And very, very basically, if you look at the illness-wellness continuum, on the left-hand side, the nasty side of mental illness, the premature death, and etc. But then on the right-hand side, we move into that sort of that flow of wellness, that flow of flourishing, and really that's where we want to try and move our children. So we don't have to diagnose, we don't have to look at the symptoms. What we can do is we can create awareness, we can educate them, and we can grow these children and give them strategies on how to really just look after their mental wellness and to move forward. Right, so quite difficult to embed this, and particularly in a primary school context, because there's some pretty heavy stuff here that you need to talk about. So we're quite excited because what we're going to try and implement next year, I still need to have a full ratification of the staff, so don't quote me on this, is that we decided to follow Professor Lee Waters, who is an expert in this field and operates out of Australia. And she's created a sort of a framework called SEARCH, where she identifies 6 areas. And there are strength, emotional management, attention awareness, relationships, coping, and then habitats and goals. So we've decided to use this particular model to try and implement our sort of positive education for our boys and girls here at Rhenish. I initially started with our senior management team, where we did the VIA character strength survey. And basically what that is, it lists your 24 strengths from the most important to your 24th strength. And obviously affords us an opportunity of reflection. The staff jumped on board on this on Monday, and they're busy in the process of doing that. So I'll quickly need to go to my last slide because I can see I'm running out of time, Pete. So how are we going to embed this into our pastoral care or wellness program? And just a couple quick points, and I'm really cognizant of time and being the last speaker, so I apologize if I do rush through it a little bit. But it must be visible, and obviously that's where framework really can help you. It needs to be intentional. This doesn't happen just by osmosis, although it can. You really need to put an intentional focus on it. So what we're planning on doing is actually timetabling this. But it doesn't necessarily need to remain within the timetabled slots. It can also be flexible, and you can embed it into your other lessons and your other learning areas within your school. You can align it to your current house system or your classroom or your phase of school. We're choosing to link it to our house system here at Rhenish. We have 3 houses. And we've decided that we're going to create little house pods or mentor groups within the house. And basically what that is, it's smaller families within the larger Rhenish family. And they will be meeting once a week for half an hour with their particular mentor. And, here you can decide exactly how you want to do it, whether it's just your academic staff, whether you use your interns. In a previous school, I even had admin staff who joined into this, which was absolutely incredible. The entire staff commitment and buy-in needs to take place. And it's always a good idea to roll it out with them first so that they can get a real sort of idea and engagement and can collaborate within the process. Then moving forward, you want to identify the staff champions, which we're currently looking at, and they could possibly become house parents and form part of that as well. Alternate house pods and house assemblies, there's different ways in which you can structure it. The other thing that was really important and a big takeout from my time up in Johannesburg recently was to develop accessible wellness toolkits. And this is a variety of wellness strategies, ideas, methods, activities, etc., that you can put in one common area and one shared area. And you don't want to be overly prescriptive with this. You want to be able to give the staff the freedom to choose. You also need to be very cognizant that you need to develop your pastoral care, your wellness program within your particular environment. We're living in such a diverse country as we know, and it really does need to suit your particular community. I've been fortunate that I've taught in 4 provinces and 6 different schools, or 5 different schools during my career, and every community is a different community, so you need to be aware of that. It also needs to be age specific and not a one-size-fits-all, and a little bit of flexibility with that too. And then the last stuff, I think, is probably the challenging stuff and the difficult stuff. My current school is 162 years old, and it's been on the block for quite some time here in Stellenbosch. So you need to question your discipline approaches and possibly start looking at a restorative approaches rather than punitive. You might have to reconsider your rewards, your punishments, your prize givings, etc. You may also need to sort of look at your pupil leadership programs as well. And again, those sometimes aren't the easiest of conversations, but certainly conversations worth having, in order to move forward and in order to develop this. So in wrapping up, I always call this my unicorn quote, and it is stolen. But I feel passionately that it's not our job to toughen our children up to face a cruel and heartless world. It's our job to raise children who will make the world a little less cruel and heartless. And ladies and gentlemen, I really think that is our jobs as educators in preparing pupils for the future world, for the future workplace. And then finally, just be lekker.
I should have worn my lekker shirt. Alex, thank you. I think brilliant. Some real practical handles there of what to do. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you a question. What is one thing that you could recommend a teacher could do in their class tomorrow that would have impact with what you've been talking about? One thing, anything come to mind?
Break away from the curriculum and do something different. Take the children on a visualization. Break halfway through a lesson and play music and ask children to close their eyes and take themselves to a happy place. Something like that, Pete.
Brilliant, Alex, I love it. And I think that's been coming up as we need to look at different ways of engaging with our learners as we prepare them for the future. So thank you. Please note, Alex, I'm going to be looking through the company's code of conduct, rules, etc., to see where my kid can work out how to prove that your rules don't cover those key points, so we can win your car.
Thank you. I might give away the school bucky, but don't tell the SGB about that.
You are safe. Brilliant. Alex, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out to share. Thank you for giving real practical handles that schools can use.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thanks. I'm going to swing across to Iceman. So I think, Jared, question from my side, especially with kind of where Yenza comes from and this background of career pathing and what we've heard today. Takeaways, how could Yenza apply to this?
Yeah, so I wrote a couple notes that maybe we'll attempt to summarize a few things from today. So anxiety is often a result of uncertainty. So let's try and close that gap. Let's raise awareness for the world of work, what's happening, what's changing, because there is so much uncertainty. As Dean was talking to, the world of work is changing so quickly. So let's try and close that gap. A company like Yenza does that as well with career knowledge. Self-loathing is often a result of lack of understanding, a feeling of lack of belonging, lack of appreciation. So let's solve for that. Let's promote diversity, understanding, with, for example, the Yenza assessments that we've built, we try to raise people's levels of self-understanding through, for example, personality. And when you drill into personality, that predicates a lot of strengths and weaknesses that we all have. And time and again, when we look at this and when people realize this, that's when the empathy comes. That's when it's like, oh, I understand myself in relation to you. And that's where the understanding, that's where the empathy comes. That's where the sense of belonging comes. And, these aren't new ideas here. We need to find the time and the space to do this and to do this properly. And if we need to go off beast and off curriculum to do that, I also echo those words of encouragement. What a wonderful 2 days it's been. It's been insightful and heart-opening, and thank you to all the wonderful teachers out there on the front lines, helping our young learners to become highly exportable commodities, as Brett Sinclair said so yesterday. So thank you all.
Brilliant. So just once again, a shout out, thank you to Yenza, so Jared, for you and your team for sponsoring, also for the Safeguarding Company. It really helped support us today. We always want to do free stuff, so your kind generosity as well as the Safeguarding Company. So please check out the polls. I know Yenza, we didn't get to speak about it today, but they are there to help you mold and give tools for your learners as they kind of get that compass on their career path. So please check them out. There is a poll there. If you didn't fill it in yesterday, for Jared and his team to be able to reach out to you, check out the other companies. So Jared, a big thank you in that regard. I'm gonna close with a comment here from Paul, who said, "Where does a teacher's scope of practice or responsibility end? The terms holistic and well-rounded, etc., being used are being used perhaps only in the last 20 to 30 years, suggests there is no end to the expectations placed upon teachers. Add social media, online learning, etc., etc." Paul, I agree. I think the role that teachers play in our country, countries around the world, is so critical, and that scope on you and that pressure on you is intense. And we are so appreciative of what you do, how you give, how you steward these future generations. And that's why for us, this future worker, this topic is just so key to kind of give you tools and ideas that can help you. So we really hope in the last 2 days that you've taken away some points, some tools that can actually help you lift weight off your shoulders, make you more effective. So to all the teachers out there, to the counselors, the heads, the deputies, we appreciate everything that you do for our learners. And a massive thank you for all of you for coming live and seeing us. We will make the recordings available if there's something you want to share with colleagues or friends. And we hope to see you next. I think this is our last event for the year. In Jan, end of the year, we'll start communicating about Schoolscape Premier, which happens in person in March in Cape Town and Joburg, as well as Schoolscape IT, which is going to happen at the end of the year in Cape Town, Joburg, and soon to be Durban. So we are slowly spreading out. So we'll keep you updated with that. And I hope for all of the teachers out there, this last term goes quickly. I think we all deserve a well-deserved December holiday. So thank you, everyone. And thank you also just to our speakers. So for everyone joining us on the speaker side, thanks to Alex. I didn't get to actually thank you, but what a great session. So that is us. I really appreciate you being online with us. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.